All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another fun episode of the Tim and Tim Show, Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern in the Making Moves in Multifamily Facebook group. Tim Vest, how you doing today?
Not too bad. Can't complain, and nobody seems to listen when I do. So,
You're making some moves. We're making some moves. So we get,
yeah.
I saw your post and I literally copied it verbatim and I just changed the last name and I posted it as well. So we're making moves in our companies and hoping to lead by example and inspire other people to do what we've done. And so this week we have an awesome guest. His name's Darren Wright. He's put together this really interesting one sheet, and I found his story quite interesting. Darren Wright, he scaled from 0 to 98 units in 3 years. I believe you invest only in JV deals, no syndications. Is that correct?
That's correct so far.
That's so far. Okay. So only JV deals. His preferred investment thesis is to use the BRRRR model. And one note that I found incredibly interesting on his one page was that he has dyslexia, but he uses it to become a better than average investor. So, Darren, thanks for coming on the show. Why don't you give everybody a little bit of a highlight of who you are, where you come from, your background, and then we'll dive into your investment thesis and how you got into multifamily, and then we're definitely going to talk about the dyslexia.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Tim and Tim. So grateful to be here. My name's Darren Wright, and I own and operate Infinite Properties Incorporated in Canada with my wife, Dorothy. And we've had the company just 5 years, but for the first couple of years, we really didn't do a lot with it. We're just more of education and networking because we've done renovations before, flipping houses and small rental units, but we wanted to do the larger multifamily. And obviously, I'd just gone through a divorce, so we had no money at all. So we had to start from scratch. And we knew exactly what we wanted to do, but we didn't have the money. So we had to partner up with other people to do that. And then we've formed some great partnerships where we're able to BRRRR the first multifamily. And then once we got the money back, then we're able to reuse that on the second property and then onto the third property. And then we kind of went from there. And then as we grew, we were able to take on more partners and do more deals as well.
Pretty natural growth or pretty organic growth there. I like it.
Yeah, last year was his biggest growth for sure. Just everything coming together of being known for what we do and having deals come to us. And, it all started to click together last year.
It's when you experience the overnight success.
Yeah. Nobody sees all the hard work. Everybody wants to know how you've done it, and they don't see all the work you've done in the background.
Yeah.
So I want to pull on that for a second because wait a minute, you said last year, so 2023.
Yes. Yeah.
2023, you had your best year.
Yeah, best year. Yeah, that's when we added the 76 units. It would have been 76 units last year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And and why I pointed that out. Like we get so many folks that are like, couldn't find anything in 2023. Numbers didn't make sense. Nobody, people weren't doing deals, right? But you had your best year.
Yeah, that's right. We go to networking groups in the area, and then we can hear all these complaints. I can't find a deal. There is none. And I'm just thinking, there's lots there. You've really got to dig for them, and a lot of them come to us, because we've built relationships up in the past with realtors, where one of them was an off-market deal, and another one we always do an advertisement online. If anyone's selling the multifamily, and then we got a phone call from that, and that led. You don't get them that week, but they lead to it. Yeah. So you need to keep your funnel full and keep filling them in because they take so long to come to fruition sometimes and not all of them do. They don't work for us, or they don't work for the seller.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I love that because Tim and I went through the same thing last year, right? Everybody's like, "Where are you guys finding deals? I can't find anything that works," and we're like, "They're coming to us." They, like you said, it's those 4 years of digging and building relationships, and all of a sudden, overnight, they just happen, right?
Yeah, and it is interesting to see how we had an incredible year in 2023, and even as early like last Friday, I was having a conversation with one of our brokers, and he's like, you guys went on a tear in 2021 into 2022, but then you didn't stop in 2023 like everyone else did. And we're like, well, why would we have? We had access to capital. We had access to great deals. Sure, some things were painful with debt and insurance and, uncertainty in the market. But what did that do? That created an opportunity for us, because if you look, a lot of people are kind of running to other opportunities now of RV parks and car washes are popular, and buying businesses is incredibly popular now. And, shiny object syndrome is a real thing in entrepreneurs, and, everybody's going to make money in their own way. But Tim and I saw an opportunity to double and triple down on what we were good at and what we had access to. And we're starting to see those dividends now. And, one thing that it's difficult for some people to understand is that whole conversation of, well, it took me 4 years to build these relationships. Now deals just come to us. Oh, when you're first starting out, you're like, man, you're looking at that mountain to climb, and you're like, how am I ever going to get to the point where deals are coming to me? Because I am frantically searching and I can't find anything that works today. Yeah. And it's an investment. It's a long-term investment in relationship capital that in time will come and pay its dividends. And the other part of that is when those relationships know that Tim and Tim or Darren are doing deals, and when they say they're going to close on something, they actually do it. The next deal is just going to magically show up because they're like, hey, I just worked with these guys. They were great. They closed on the deal. I made money. I'm going to bring them another deal because I want to make some more money. And you see it just starts to compound. And it's like, the snowball effect. It grows and grows and grows and grows and grows.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say people were scared about the change in the market, it's a cycle. We all know from history that real estate cycles, you've got a seasonal cycle and then you've got economic cycles. And when interest rates go up, well, we should have been stress testing for those when the rates were low. You can't say, oh, rates are 2%, so let's leverage everything on 2%. You've got to know that they're going to go up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you refinance,
part of it is insurance. Insurance costs are cyclical as well, so we're buying a lot of stuff right now in very high cost insurance markets. When that insurance comes back down, we're going to look like geniuses, and we technically don't even have to do anything except for wait. But of course, we're not like that. We're going to do more and really hit it out of the park. But if you're buying in those cycles when they're up and when they're down, and you're understanding how to adjust for them appropriately, you're going to come out ahead in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Darren, I want to borrow from your one sheet. You gave us this amazing one sheet. So I want to borrow from your one sheet and maybe dig on some of these sample questions you actually gave us. You gave us a softball here. This is awesome.
So I told him that. I was like, nobody's ever given me a one sheet like this before. I was like, kind of makes our job really easy.
Yeah. So guys, these are this is a good setup here. So Darren, what is, in your opinion, the best way to get started in multifamily? I see you started in some other spaces, but what's the best way to get going in multifamily?
In multifamily, you have to know what you want to do. If you want to do multifamily, you can't be messing around with your single family homes. You have to focus on exactly what you want to do and network with people and let them know exactly what you're looking for. And deal with the realtors that deal with the multifamily. And you also need to get an education in what you want to specialize. So you can really focus on, knowing your numbers, analyzing as many as you can, and just keep going down that path of doing the multifamily.
I love that. Yeah, I love it. I mean, one of the things that a lot of people will find themselves in the hamster wheel of the shiny object syndrome is starting in a new asset class. You start all over at the bottom. Doesn't matter if you understand underwriting. If you start at the bottom, you go into RV parks, you go into mobile home parks, you go into self-storage, whatever asset class, you start at the bottom again because it's a whole new network of people. So all that work you just did for the last 3 years that you didn't make any money on is now wasted. And you probably could have made money on it in the next 12 months, but you started all over again from the bottom. So now you're 6 years into building relationships and you still haven't done a deal. And you can see how people quit at that point because they're like, I've been doing this forever and I never made $1 doing it. Well, because
wasted so much money and time. Yeah. Well, everything's different. I mean, your insurance companies are different. Your lenders are different. everything's different for multifamily than what it is single family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think And I think another thing that a lot of people miss, right, is like, people ask me, how are you doing deals? How did you get to scale? And I'm like, it's that focus, right? And the focus isn't just, around insurance and things like that, but also when I first started underwriting, I knew like one way to underwrite a deal,
Mm.
right? As over the last 4 or 5 years, I sat down this weekend and I underwrote like 16 deals, and every one of them was a little bit different. Now I know a dozen ways to underwrite a multifamily deal, right? Based on different
Yeah.
factors, based on different, things in the market. And that's another reason, more deals work, right? Is that singular focus and understanding, like, when this changes, I can do this over here, or maybe I structure it as a JV, it makes more sense as a syndication, something like that. It's like,
Yeah.
now I know all these different ways to look at a deal. That's just giving me more access to deals, right? Um,
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we talk about. We have our coaching group, Making Moves in Multifamily Coaching and Mentorship, and that's every week on Tuesdays. We meet and we talk about different ways to underwrite deals because it's ever evolving, it's ever changing. The markets are cyclical. Deal structures change all the time, and we're constantly talking about it every week.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I got asked last night, what cap rate do you buy properties at? I never use cap rate for buying.
I love this question. I
Oh,
ask
I
because
love
I
this.
get asked. Tim, you know exactly where I'm
Yeah.
going with it.
I don't use cap rate for buying. I use cap rate for refinancing or exit. That's it.
Yes.
I use it for refinance. I don't really use it as much for exit because remember, it's a ratio, right? So like whatever my projected NOI is and my projected sales price per door is just math to come up to a cap rate, right? So like,
Yeah.
I've paid a 1% cap before. And everyone's like, oh, I would never buy that deal. I'm like, okay, well, I paid a 1% cap rate and I've literally doubled the value from $6 million to $12.5 million in 16 months. Now, are you upset that you didn't pay a 1 cap? Well, yeah, if I had known that. I'm like, so then you can't like generalize and say like, this is what I do. And the only way I'm going to buy a deal if it's going in at a 10 cap. Well, okay, well,
Right.
good. Then I'll keep making money then because you're not going to find those.
Yeah.
And if you do, congratulations, but they are a needle in a haystack.
But when we first start, right? Like, we all have that conversation. Like, and Darren, maybe I'm assuming for you, but we all have that conversation because everybody teaches you pay in place, right? You pay in place on the actuals or whatever. But last night I literally had this conversation with a broker. They came to me and they're like, hey, got a buyer for your property, send over your T12 and your rent roll. And I just stopped them right there. And I was like, hey, listen, if your guy wants to pay a 6 cap on my T12, he's not my buyer. I'm going to tell you that right now. Cause we've taken tons of vacancy on this property. We've invested over $1 million into this property over the last 12 months. And the T12 is going to look horrible, but the next T12 is going to look really, really good. And I'm like, so if he wants to buy if he wants to pay me for the work I did, then we can talk about that. Right. Because the next guy's set up for success for sure.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
Darren, there's a bit of a softball, as Tim likes to say, but as we're talking about deal structures and kind of looking at them, you exclusively have done JV deals. So why do you use a JV partnership, and what makes a good JV partnership, and compare that to a syndication?
Compared to syndication, well, I get more equity because we're the working partner and the other side is the money partner. So how we've done various deals where we've BRRRR'd them or we've done a buy and hold. We did one buy and hold just recently. So we're 50-50 partners on it. So we're the working partner and we have our own property management in-house. And so we get more equity with that. If we'd done a syndication, we would have ended up with a lot less percentage of that. Mm-hmm. So by doing the JV, we got a tighter group. We only had to, because we share the qualifying for the mortgage as well.
Yeah.
So, we take that burden as well because we have enough property now to be able to do that. And so they're bringing in their capital and they're getting a good return on the money. And we always have, in 5 years when the mortgage is up for renewal, we're going to refinance. We know we're buying it under value as it is, and we're going to be steadily increasing the rents. So we know that they're going to get their money back in 5 years. So it's like a long-term BRRRR, I guess, is the buy and hold.
So let me pull on that a little bit. So I understand, the equity percentages again, as a ratio, right, are
Yeah.
going to be higher depending on the JV deal that you do, right? Now, what is a typical size of deal that you're doing in a JV partnership? Like purchase price, you know, capital raise, you know, how much money does the money partner bring and what's the total purchase price, et cetera, and so forth?
Well, we're able to buy a building for 3.8 million, and we needed, I think it was $260,000 for it.
What?
And they were able to do 50-50. Just because I have such good relationships with brokers and, you know, mortgage brokers, that we're able to use what do you call it now? We're able to use a lending that we can get 5% down on a multifamily.
What?
Yeah.
When did
It's
you
called,
do this deal?
This was last year.
Last year, you got 5% down?
5% down.
I'm going to need that lender's contact information.
Well, it's in Canada. It's there's a certain stipulation. It's for high affordable housing. So the rents have to be below a certain amount, and you can't go above that. But in our market, it's easily manageable.
Well, as you may or may not know, I mean, that's what Tim and I do is LIHTC and Section 8. So we are always in the affordable space.
Right.
Well, maybe not always, but generally 80% of the time we're doing a LIHTC or Section 8 voucher program of housing deal.
Right. Yeah. So we have some really good lending on that in Canada.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Wow. I mean, buying basically a $4 million deal for $250,000, like sign me up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get them every week, obviously, but and it was such a great deal. We actually bought the corporation that it sat in, so we saved, I think it was $40,000 in land transfer tax as well.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you going to say something, Tim?
No, I was just, well, other than if I could get more deals like that, I'd be doing more JVs for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's him. Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you know, your comment of how dyslexia helps you be a better than average investor. I mean, that's the first time I've ever heard anybody say or claim anything like that. So I'm really curious to see how you've taken advantage of the situation in order to better yourself.
Okay. Yeah. It's more about not using it as an excuse. There's a lot of people, well, you know, if you have something that gives you a disadvantage, you can use it as an excuse and say, I can't do that. There's a lot of things that I can't do. You know, my reading ability is not as good as most people, and I get stuck on things. The spelling is just absolutely terrible. But it's all about, I can see a project better overall. I can see all the moving parts and think ahead of what needs to be done. And I'm certainly a lot better numbers than the average person as well. So I use those skills on what I'm good at and then fill in the missing parts with other people on my team. You know, my wife helps me tremendously with a lot of things, you know, reading stuff out and things like that. Can you just go over this before I actually post it or send it to somebody an email? You know, I have a lawyer that takes care of all the legal aspects as well. So I'm never, you know, afraid of that. So it's all about filling in those gaps that you know, because nobody knows everything. Nobody. And that's what you need to do when you're moving from like a single entrepreneurship where you got one house and you're renting it out. You can do everything, but once you want to scale or go in the multifamily, you have to let a lot of that go and then fill the gaps in with people who can do it better than you can.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that just it's timely because Tim posted that just this morning about how we hired an operations manager, but one in the post that he did on LinkedIn, it's talking about how working till midnight and weekends and bashing your head against the wall just doesn't work anymore because we've gotten so big. But it doesn't matter if you're in a single family game trying to go from 10 to 20, or in the multifamily trying to go from 1,000 to 2,000. Like we all come across the same problems. But it's awesome to see that you've used it as an advantage to help you really be a visionary in your company and move the business forward instead of being the person that's crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And it's a good partnership, it sounds like, for you and your wife, because maybe she does more of that and you're more of the visionary. So you're not like butting heads because you don't have two chefs in the kitchen kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we help each other out. Yeah.
Yeah, Darren, I gotta be honest, man. The fact that you was this Bachelor of Science in Computer Systems Engineering.
Yeah.
So I don't have dyslexia, and like going through that, I did some of that similar stuff in college, and going through that would make my eyes cross. Like how did you kind of get through that? You know, you talk about how you got lawyers that read the fine print now, but you know, how did you get through some of that going through those, because those 2 degrees take quite a bit of attention to detail, right?
They do, but it's funny with dyslexia, the simple stuff is the hard stuff. The more, I failed high school. I barely showed up for the last 2 years of high school, so I walked away with nothing. And then I went to a trade school and got my electrical license. This is in England. And then when my son was born, I started a hobby of computers, and I always broke my computer. I seem to be reinstalling Windows on it every other week. So
I needed screen of death or whatever it is, and you got to refresh it.
Yeah, the person who I bought it off, he must have got sick of me. I was constantly knocking on his door. I've done this, I've done that. So I had to learn myself. So I went to night school, and I started to learn about computers, and I wanted to know everything. And so I if I'm interested in, I can read the books a lot easier. And I just understood the way the computers worked. So then when I ran out of night classes, I'd just done them all. And then I went on to do a diploma, taking some time off work to do that. And I was only able to get on that course because I had electrical trade. I was only the way I had to talk my way onto it. And they said, okay, we'll give you a shot. So I did that. And then from that, I was able to then go on to the university to do the degree. And yet it took a lot out of me. I mean, I was married and had a young family at home. I was working full time, looking after the kids in the evening and doing a full-time course. And what made me laugh the most, I was in an afternoon class. It was 2 p.m, and 2 students were talking. He said, hey, you didn't come to last week's class. And he said, yeah, I didn't get up in time. And this was 2 p.m. And I'm thinking, I've got a full-time job, a full-time family, and a full-time course, and I'm here doing it. So,
yeah.
So,
it always comes back to how bad do you want it?
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Tim, how many people do we come across that reach out to us for coaching and mentorship, and they, commonly talk about how they've been doing it for 4 to 6 months and they haven't had any success yet, and maybe they're spending an hour or 2 a week on it. I'm like, cool. I was spending an hour or 2 on it every morning before going to work. It's like, how bad do you actually want to be successful in a new industry if you're starting at the bottom and you're not willing to make those sacrifices to get what you want?
Well, and Darren, I think you touched on it, Tim. You just said it. It's the willingness, right? And when I first started, like, people started reaching out to me and asking me questions about any success I was having or other folks. I used to literally talk about banging your head on the wall. I used to bang my head on the wall because I'm like, I just hear, I don't have time. I don't have time.
Oh,
and I'm just and I'm literally just banging my head going, I think you have more time than you think you do. Right. Like and then it finally came down. It finally dawned on me, Darren, like, it's the willingness, right? It's like, you got to want it. You got to really, really want it.
You got to make it a priority.
Yeah, that's right.
And you obviously really, really wanted it, because I have a kid. Tim has a kid. I know what it's like to try to raise a family and work at the same time. And then on top of that, you're like going to these weekend classes, night classes, and kudos for sure.
I wanted to prove that I wasn't stupid, because being dyslexic, if you have to ask to spell a word, you feel stupid asking about it. So I wanted to prove that I wasn't stupid.
Yeah.
And it really took a lot out of me. And like I said, the harder it got, the easier it was. But when that finished, I was like, oh, I don't feel any different. I haven't proved anything. But I proved to myself I could do it. And you touched on the dyslexia. I was actually tested for the second time for dyslexia, and if I'd be able to do it. The first time I was tested was at my electrical school, and that was to kick me out. They said it was too much to handle someone dyslexic, because it was all dictation, and I can't write under dictation. So I used to copy off the person next to me, and they were fine with, the guys you go to school with. And I had to write as quickly as they could. So I didn't hold anybody up. But I did the first, and it came back on the results, and they said, no, he's highly intelligent, he won't have any problems. And I didn't. It was just the school. So when I went to the university, they did a test, and this time they did a test to see if they could help me. So in any written exam, I had a transcribe. So I didn't have to think on how to spell a word because I knew the knowledge. So I just spoke to this person and they wrote all the answers down. And I had a little bit of extra time as well.
Yeah, man, that's so key. It's like, it's not that you're any different than anybody else. Your learning style is just different. And that's okay. Like everybody's different, and it's, it's almost infuriating how, they tried to kind of beat you down because you were different, when ultimately all they needed to do is just kind of change the process in order to be accessible. Because it wasn't like you weren't changing the coursework. It was just the communication styles different.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, things have changed a lot since then.
They have. Yeah. So Darren, we're kind of coming up on time here in the next couple of minutes. So I do want to kind of ask you some things like, where do you see with the growth that you've had in the last year, right? Where do you see what's next for you in the multifamily industry, but also where do you see your properties going? Like, I know that you've bought a lot last year. Now you've owned some of those properties for 12 months, maybe a little more than 12 months. I know I can say for Tim and I, like some of our business plans have changed as we continue to grow and own things for more than a year or 2 years. What do you see next for yourself and the industry as a whole? And, what are kind of your predictions?
We're just going to keep growing. That's all we have at the moment. We have as goal to get to 2,500 units. So we're going to keep pushing for that. We have set up another company just recently in the US. I'm still working on that. Because we went down to Miami for the conference, and we haven't gone home yet. We just that was in January. Yeah, we've actually been away. I think this is day 49. We've been on the road.
Yeah,
and we did this to test our business because we keep working in our business and you get too involved, and I wanted to force us to work on our business. So we've been doing a lot of that while we've been traveling. It's been working on our business and setting things up more remotely. And working on ourselves as well. So it's a change. As you grow, you have to change. So we need that. Yeah, it's like I picture it as like a plate spinning. You're spinning all these plates, and you got to keep going back and give it another spin, and then you get a new plate. You got to pass these plates on to somebody else to spin. And oversee them.
Well, so Darren, man. Go ahead, Tim. Yep.
I was just going to say. So where do you? So obviously you want to grow. You have a goal of getting to 2,500 units by when?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
So what do you see in the multifamily industry now that, because there's no deals and there's no money out there?
There's lots of deals. There's lots of money out there. There's an abundance of money. That's for sure. Yeah. Everybody wants to make money on the money they have. Everybody, whether it's in a pension plan or anything. Nobody trusts the government to do anything with it. So you got to do it for themselves, self-direct and work on it.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody needs a place. Everybody needs a place to live. There's more people renting now than ever before.
God, it's like you read my LinkedIn post today.
I haven't been on LinkedIn yet.
I literally had a post today. It was like, so you want to retire? You better take things into your own hands. Like,
I saw that actually this morning.
Yeah. You just said it right there, man. Like all these traditional avenues. I don't know. I guess if you want to work 45 years and you retire comfortable, I guess you can. But that's not what I'm after. No,
I'm not sure. Well, I'm not too sure about that. You work 45 years. Nobody works 45 years at the same company anymore. That's for sure. No. Things are changing rapidly.
Yeah, pensions don't exist for sure. Those are gone. So
how are you? So, my sarcasm was missed there on the no deals and no money. But how are you?
I caught it.
I know you got it. But how are you taking advantage of the current market in order to continue to grow? Is kind of what I was getting at.
Well, it's easier if everybody else is scared. They stand back.
Yeah.
There's less competition. Yeah. It's even better. I prefer a buyer's market than the seller's market for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, of
I-
course.
It can be
Yeah,
a lot
I
more
always prefer a
creative.
buyer's market.
Yeah, a lot more creative. Yeah, buyer's
Yeah.
market.
Yeah, and Darren, you hit the nail on the head. Like when everybody else, I mean, Tim and I were doing stuff in 22 when everybody was showing up with 15 offers for the same deal, but I gotta be honest, I kind of preferred 2023 in terms of negotiating deals.
There's a lot more flexibility on the buying side with, well, hey, you can either put this back on the market or give me the extra 7 days that I need because the bank is delayed. Your choice.
Yeah.
Everyone extended. They're like, okay, I'll give it to you because I don't want to go back out on the market. Previously, in 2021 and 2022, they'd be like, cool, I'm going to keep your earnest money and I'm going to put it back on the market and get an extra $5,000 a door.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate that because people don't understand there are delays that you just can't foresee. And there's some inexperienced realtors that just want to close a multifamily as quick as you can close a house. And it's just not doable.
It just doesn't work that way.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So many moving parts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So good. All right. Well, Darren, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. It was great hearing your story. And I love your mindset and kind of how you've taken advantages of what other people would call disadvantages. I think that you guys are on a great trajectory and a great path. If you did 76 units last year, I'm sure you're going to add a couple hundred this year in 2024. Now that you've got proven systems and track record and relationship capital and the bank's all set up, I mean, now you're really about to hit that hockey stick growth. And I'd love to check in with you like this time next year and see, what did you end up doing in 2024 and capitalizing on that hockey stick growth?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for
Appreciate
your time. All right. Take it easy. Talk to you next time.
Thanks, Darren.
Bye.
Take
See you.
care.